I'm starting just with one sort of proviso. We are the last session. We are asked to do speed presentation. I think we are rebelling against that, so we are going to take longer than 5 minutes to present our papers. So I hope you don't mind that. Is mine going to go? Yeah. First of all, anyway, just to thank everybody for inviting us and inviting myself here to the conference. This is my third conference, and I'm very pleased to be here. And also congratulations to all of you for the UAE Day, and I wish you all the best. My paper is not a paper, if you like. You don't mind if I'm walking around a bit here, because I can't stand still. The paper is entitled Dancing with Wolves. I decided to go for wolves because the theme of the conference was crocodile, and I thought I'd go for another wild mammal. And I have put 3 pictures there. One of them is from Little Red Riding Hood. Those of you who may have heard of the story when you were a child. And that's to do with the wolf. And I also have a picture of the movie Dances with Wolves, which was the title given by the natives to the main character. And then the third one is the title of a book, which I suggest that most women should read, and it's called Women Who Run with the Wolf. And I will come back to that book later, and I hope that I can read one passage from that, hopefully, within the time that I have. The presentation will contain mainly questions. I will not answer the questions, and I may ask even more questions as I go through the slides. So the first question that I'm asking is basically, why do we think learning is a good thing? Is it like health food? Is it like fresh fruit that we should have? Why is it good? And then I want to take you back to my previous presentations. For those of you who didn't hear me in previous years, I have talked about 2 main elements of learning in previous years. One was about unlearning and forgetting, which is a form of learning itself, the way I had argued. And the other one was to emphasize what you need for organizational learning and in terms of organizational forms. And I had suggested then that nomadic learning. And I had suggested then that maybe we should move away from some forms of organization. So my next question regarding that flashback is organizational learning an oxymoron? In a sense that organization is an opposite to learning, and there are 2 different sets of principles. And I'm asking that, will you choose principles of organizing which are about stability, certainty, and structures? And why? Is it because you prefer predictability? And will you opt for principles of learning which are embedded in the uncertainty and disorganization? So you have disorganization as against organization. Can we or organizations cope with absence of a structure and known paths, do you think in such a situation we can use lessons from the past to control the future? Do you think in such a situation, yes, to control the future, to make it more predictable? Okay, I've referred to totem here. Is learning not like constructing our totem or deconstructing one? What does it take to build a totem? So if you can build that, then would we understand what learning is? Yes. Is it fundamentally acceptable to consider organizational unlearning synonymous to forgetting? If you unlearn a recipe, does that mean that you will forget that recipe? What happens to that recipe, that ways of doing? Where does it go? What happens to the memory? Can we, can we organizations unlearn? This implies an intentional act, a choice, a deliberate decision. How do we make such a decision or choice? So how do you decide what to unlearn? What to forget? How do you know this is the knowledge that you don't need anymore? This is the knowledge that you can discard. Please. Here I have a picture of a movie called The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And this is based on a poem by Alexander Pope. And the movie was interesting, as I explained this in previous occasions, where people who had very traumatic experiences or experiences that they didn't like, they would go to a clinic, and in that clinic, that memory of that event would be erased from their mind. So they will leave the clinic with their clear mind, not remembering any of that sort of hurtful memories. Please. Forgetting is about discarding knowledge that we think is not needed. How do we know which knowledge to delete? Yes. Discarding old unwanted knowledge and unlearning old habits assumes there will be room created for learning new knowledge. So what is considered as new knowledge? How do you know that you have the new knowledge? And how do you know, what would you call it new? What are the signals, criteria, measures? Can they be measured? So how would you know it is new and it's not old? Yes. No, please, before. Now, I'm emphasizing this because what I want to know is that what happens to what we call the discarded knowledge, the old knowledge, the one that we have deleted. Is it possible to start from a tabula rasa, a clean slate, a clean page with nothing on it? What happened to that past experiences? Please. Then I ask whether we should have a sell-by date, like food. By this time, this knowledge would be obsolete. Use by such and such date, sell by such and such date. Yes, please. Do you agree with the saying that knowledge is about knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is not putting it in your fruit salad? Okay, then considering the crocodile, I decided to go to have all the other references to sea animals. Here we have dolphin, carp, and shark. And I would like just quickly to tell you that people refer to playing with dolphins but avoiding sharks. And of course, carp is the one at the bottom. So at the top of the severity, you have shark as an aggressive, carp as passive, and dolphin as proactive. And the assumption is that you know, so when we're talking about barriers to learning, or when we are talking about challenges to learning, would you prefer to swim and play with a dolphin, or would you like to swim with a shark, or would you like to ignore the carp? And then what about the crocodile? Would you believe his tears? And would you be able to approach him from behind? So I am also questioning, what is the use of metaphor here? To what extent the metaphors help us understand organizational learning and learning per se, and organizing per se? And if they are helping, then that's good. But I'm asking the question, please. Then my next question is, can we follow honeybees, which are probably the most highly evolved insects in terms of learning? They are very good at learning colors, smell, and shapes, and they can navigate very properly. They can find where they are. They can also communicate. So they have very sophisticated communicating systems, but they are very organized as well. But then, of course, you know, you be going to questioning whether we are discussing imprinting and imprinted rules. Please. No, please. Can we? Thank you. Can we learn to forget? And learn to unlearn, yes. The Little Red Riding Hood question is, do you know the story? And the story is about the little girl who leaves her grandmother's house. And there are two rules there which say, two rules: keep up the path and don't talk to wolves. And of course, the story carries on. But is there Little Red Riding Hood in all of us where we would not follow the path? And is wolf really the animal that is as fierce as we are believed to know? Yes, please. Where do I signal? We can play. I want to play the future. No, I can't. I haven't finished. I'm sorry, I can't. So can we go through this then? It's not fair. My main question also is, to what extent, what would be the difference between the way men understand organizational learning and the way women understand organizational learning? And I have this question here: what questions will a man ask in his articulation of organizational learning? Would he see the questioning that I have done here as the essence of learning, or would he see it as an attempt to decompose the phrase as irrational? Okay, I read one passage from the book and then I stop. What Clarissa Pinkola Este is saying is very interesting, and I think all women should listen. Healthy wolves and healthy women share certain psychic characteristics: keen sensing, playful spirit, and heightened capacity for devotion. Wolves and women are relational by nature, inquiring, possessed of great endurance and strength. They are deeply intuitive, intensely concerned with their young, their mates, and their pack. Their experience in adapting constantly to constantly changing circumstances, they are fiercely stalwart and very brave. Yet both the wolves and women have been hounded, harassed, and falsely imputed to be devouring and devious, overly aggressive and less value than those who are their detractors. They have been the targets of those who would clean up the wives as well as the wildish environs that the psyche extinguishing and instinctual and leaving no trace of it behind. I'm sorry I had to rush that, but what I basically, just to summarize, what I'm trying to say is that what is this organizational learning, and are women's ways different from males?
Thank you very much for Prof. Sudi Sharif for this great presentation. And we are so sorry to don't have the time for running the film because we have to close at 3:30. So the next, Dr. Daiva Bukantati, Vitatus Magnus University, Lithuania.
Hello, I am Daiva. As I came from music and education sector, I would like to introduce my research, which was done with music teachers. Participatory photography method, a way to measure learning in an organization. The author of research thinks that identification of factors that encourage teachers' learning in their workplace will allow to make an assumption that participatory photography method is the right method to measure learning in an organization. So the goal of research was to identify factors that encourage teachers' learning in the workplace. Methodology of research. Participatory photography method is a method where participants of research have to answer to researchers' questions by taking photographs. Later on, the photographs are described, explained, and analyzed. Personal insights are shared with the researchers. Participants of the research are selected by using convenience principle. Participants are teachers of high schools, gymnasiums, music schools, and pre-music schools who work in the institution for not less than 3 years. 10 teachers took part in the research, 9 women and 1 man. Firstly, every participant was contacted by phone or email and was asked to take pictures of factors that encouraged them to learn in their workplace. They were asked to make as many pictures as possible, and the time and place of interview was set. All the pictures were made by participants' own photo cameras or cell phones. Photographs of separate participants were not compared. No one tried to find differences and similarities between them. Teachers were asked a few basic questions. Why did you take this exact picture? What is in the picture? Why does it encourage you to learn in your workplace? How do you learn? Why do you learn in a workplace? Every participant of the research was personally introduced to get goal of research, and their questions were answered. Participants took care of the parents' consent to take pictures of their child during the research. Research results. According to teachers, their learning in their workplace encouraged by various factors. Some were mentioned by a few participants, others were only stressed by some. I would like to introduce some of them. Open master classes. These lessons are really beneficial for teachers because we improve our professional knowledge that determines our successful professional work. In the open lessons, professional teachers share their teaching and learning experience, reveal ways and methods that we can use in our lessons later. Going to a concert. While being at a concert, you can hear new forms of performing. You can also hear melodies that you forgot or haven't ever heard yet. Concerts forms musical taste and erudition. Going to concert helps to know the variety of current musical world, puts one in an optimistic mood, inspires for new activities, encourage new ideas about teaching children the art of music. Students' preparation for competitions, festivals, and concerts. Achievements in competitions motivate everyone. Preparations improve relationships. If you don't take part in anything, you will not be interesting to anyone. Instruments used in the lessons. There are various instruments in our school, and my desire as a music teacher is to be able to play all of them in order to teach children to play them as well. All music instruments encourage personal and professional improvement of teachers. We play and learn together. Untraditional instruments. I am very interested in untraditional instruments. I look for them online and in seminars. I learn to make them and to play them. After I learn myself, I teach children. Students love interesting, unseen, and at the same time, very primitive but special instruments that are really fun to play. Untraditional instruments need different sheet musical than usual. It takes a lot of work to learn these subtleties. Students are the best learning sources for the teachers. They always have new enlightenment ideas. Young, spontaneity of the students encourage interesting in new things. Participation in projects. My school has creative partnership projects where students, teachers, and parents learn together by creating. Teachers learn to form critical, meaningful questions in groups. Those questions will help to accomplish goals set by creative partnership when working with classes where children have problems with communication, motivation, behavior, culture, and discipline. Reflection of the researchers. First, all teachers started that they do not learn at school. Participatory photography method encouraged teachers to think about learning in their workplace. The objects and people that appeared in the photographs help participants reveal and understand how and from whom they learn. All conversations started as formal one and ended up being very cozy. Material base of class is not directly connected to teachers' learning in the workplace. It is strange that only a few of participants mentioned student as a learning factor. Not many teachers photographed their colleagues. Only one teacher acknowledged them as the main learning factor. Conclusions. The use of participatory photography method helps to identify factors that encourage learning in a workplace and the reflection of participants of the research. 3 groups of factors that encourage learning in a workplace were identified: evaluation, functional, and structural. Teachers do not link workplace only with their work in class. Going to concerts, taking part in seminars, projects, students' preparation for competition trips were also mentioned as learning factor. A clear link between active participation in the learning process, the acknowledgement of this process, and creativity of the students was witnessed. Thank you. 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Daiva. It was amazing presentation. And the next is Dr. Dalia Mabrouk, El Ain University.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to present my paper today, Sustainability of the Traditional Teaching Methods Against the E-Learning Stream. At first, I need to differentiate between the term teaching and learning, and what are the teaching methods under study here in this research. Actually, teaching means information provided by senders or teachers to touch one or more of the senses of the perceivers or the students, while learning information provided by teachers or senders that will be perceived, memorized, and eventually recombined with other information. And obviously, I think that the learning process is higher and requires more mental capability than teaching process. Then, as e-learning is mainly involved in my research, so I'll give a very short kind of definition about it. E-learning, according to the encyclopedia, is a general term used to refer to computer-enhanced learning, which is called augmented learning. And the educational specialist Moore in 1989 explained that there are three main types of interaction which are necessary for quality, effective online learning. The first kind of communication is called learner-learner. This is a kind of interaction which happens among peers, with or without the presence of the teacher. The second kind of communication is called learner-instructor. Of course, it's the kind of communication which happens between the student and his teacher. Then the third kind of interaction is a learner content, which means intellectually interacting with content. And this kind of interaction must result in changes in the learner's understanding, perceptions, and cognitive structures. Now, what is the main point of my research? Actually, this paper tackles the traditional teaching methods and their ability to sustain in the face of the superseding e-learning stream, not only in UAE, but also in Al Ain University as one of its members. But in order to be able to assess which teaching method best suits our students, we need to analyze the learning outcomes. Why the learning outcomes? Because I believe they are the real reflection of the real improvement of teaching processes and the students' learning. Then, the educational theories, however modern and updated, are useless, and I believe myself that they are useless unless proven feasible in a particular environment, as well as contribute to the development of the students' personalities in terms of cultural development and professional skills. Consequently, it's to be discovered whether it's practically and scientifically feasible to assess what students in higher education know and what students can do upon graduation and across these diverse contexts. Then, why such a crush and obsession with e-learning? Actually, the vast movement towards e-learning is clearly motivated by the many benefits it has to offer. However, e-learning is praised and innovated. I personally believe that computers will never completely eliminate the human instructors and other forms of educational delivery. That's why I conducted such a paper, in order to have between my hands tangible results about such kind of belief. Now, of course, we need to go through some of the common benefits of e-learning, and the question, do these benefits overweigh the benefits of face-to-face instruction, and would e-learning be really able to replace the traditional face-to-face learning? I'll go quickly over some of the common e-learning benefits. Like no other way, of course, e-learning promises to provide a single experience, and e-learning also offers individualized instruction, which print media cannot provide, and by putting learning style tests, e-learning can locate and target individual learning preferences. And as Mr. Macy mentioned yesterday, there is a big difference between the freedom of the students to tailor what kind of curriculum he needs and the restrictions put around e-learning. In these ways, e-learning is inclusive of a maximum number of participants within a maximum range of learning styles, preferences, and needs. Then, the most common disadvantages, on the other hand, e-learning is considered an upfront investment which requires a lot of costs, and there are, of course, technology issues such as technology infrastructure. Is it able to accomplish the curriculum and the course goals objectives or not, and whether compatibility of the software and the hardware can be achieved. Another point which I personally experienced with my students at Al Ain University, the point of, or the issue of technophobia. Some of the students have such kind of fear from dealing and sitting in front of the computers, and in spite of the fact that portability of training is a point of strength to e-learning, because of the proliferation and the so many linking points, notebook, computers, PDAs, and mobile phones, but still such kind of proliferations of linking and Wi-Fi does not rival that of printed books or reference materials. And the last kind of disadvantage, which is very clear and obvious, of course, there is a serious lack of communication skills such as body language and peer-to-peer experience or potential experience. Then, the case study I conducted through my research paper it's like we conducted a survey of the different methods of teaching in order to figure out the potential influence on the students' preferences of learning methods, and the survey has been administered to some of the undergraduate students in Al Ain University, those who are being taught in Arabic medium, and the survey was undertaken in order to find answers to the following questions. Question number 1, how far traditional face-to-face instruction is being threatened by online learning? Does subsidiary face-to-face instruction to e-learning enhance students' performance, and what conditions influence the effectiveness of students' learning? Then the findings. I get out with the findings that we discovered that 18% of the students prefer to receive only pure e-learning or online learning, and 37% of the students prefer to have pure traditional classical kind of teaching, which is face-to-face, and the majority of the students prefer to have blended or hybrid learning, which is a mix of both. Then the data collected are found insightful and important, as results show that learning, though superseding and demanding, students could never discard the face-to-face learning. Mainly, we measure the effectiveness of e-learning to students who are being taught, of course, in Arabic medium only. Then, the effectiveness of online learning approaches appears quite broad across different content and learner types, but they only are not sufficient. According to our case in Al Ain University, only e-learning is not sufficient with our students due to various kinds of dimensions, maybe the scholastic background and the serious shortage of students' motivation. Then it was found out that blended and the purely online learning conditions implemented within a single study generally result in pretty different student learning outcomes. Then, why I conducted such a study? The goal of this study is to provide policymakers, practitioners, educators, and administrators with research-based guidance about the necessity of maintaining both face-to-face instruction aligned with the online learning. Finally, the challenge is not in using the latest technology as it seems useless without tangible results on the student's performance. Thus, e-learning in itself, though is regarded as the most demanding and prestigious method of learning, when compared to classrooms in any university, thorough procedures and benchmarks need to be measured for tailoring suitable learning methods that could solidly contribute to a real healthy learning environment. Another point I get out with through this research, that huge attention should be paid to some of the faculty staff, because there are two groups of faculty members. The first group are those who are reluctant to adopt e-learning technique out of resistance to any culture of change, and the other group of faculty members are those who keep sticking to using pure technology and refusing to integrate any kind of extra traditional methods of teaching. And finally, I believe that both kinds of academic staff should be motivated by a true and honest desire to meet the students' requirements and help them to overcome their weaknesses. Finally, thank you for your attention.
شكرا دكتور منال، دكتور داليا، مبروك على هذا العرض الرائع. والتالي مستر أسامة السمان، سنة تشينج مانجمنت كندا.
Thank you, Dr. Suzanne. My name is Osama Samman, and I am an action research and action learning practitioner. I have an organization based out of Canada called Sena Leadership and Change Advisory. And I'd like to talk today about something that is very important to me. This is not my presentation let me just get the right slides. It is something that is very important to me because I come from two cultures. I speak from the middle of those two cultures, and it's who I am, and my research is kind of relevant to that. I'm just waiting for the slides to come up on the screen. Thank you very much. So it's a long title, but if we want to take something out of that title, I'd ask you to focus on the word action learning, generative, management education, obviously, and localized development. And I also like the theme of the crocodile, and if I can ask my friends up in the room to play the short video, because I think it will refreshen everybody and kind of bring life into the session. Can we play the little video, please? So that's the theme of the crocodile. And you've probably all seen this video before. It has no sound. But to me, it's very relevant to what I'm trying to talk about. And it's not very long, so. I love the facial expressions on the wildebeest when they realize that that's a crocodile. That is a classic example of action learning that you do not want to try. But I want to speak today about management education, about courses that are delivered in organizations. And I want to ask the question, is it a log or a crocodile? Are these passages into further knowing, or is it a trap that we might fall into? And we've heard a number of items or words being said in the last few days about glocalization. Dr. Suzanne mentioned that the other day. 3 books only written in Arabic about action learning. And what I'm trying to talk about here is, what are we going to do? There is deficiency in management knowledge that is localized to the Arabic culture that speaks to our values. What do we do? Well, the easiest thing to do is we go and we bring in imported knowledge that, and I'm not criticizing imported knowledge, I just think it's very suitable for the context in which it was developed. What I'm saying here is it's not necessarily all very suitable to our context. So it's predominantly rooted in Western paradigm, and it's based on the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution took place over a long time. That is not very relevant to our part of the world. We did not go through that journey in exactly the same way, and therefore knowledge and science based on that may not be relevant to us. We have very different economic realities, management, organization, and leadership values. While the terms might be similar in different cultures, the application of it is practically different. And I was talking about with Dr. Mary Crossan about that yesterday. Actions and translating those values into the different cultures is not the same. It means humility means something different to me as an Arab than it does as a Canadian, or kindness, or it has similarity, but it's not exactly the same in application. So there is very obvious and practical shortcomings in the current way we conduct management learning. It's very pedagogical. It's based on pedagogy. The Greek word is paid, which is child, and agogos, which is learning. And that is dependent on a professor or a teacher or a trainer who knows everything, and he makes very subjective judgment about what the audience are gaining from that discussion, from that talk. It's a very submissive sort of knowledge transference, and it's a reductionist approach, really, to real problems that happen in the organizations. I wanted to bring in, and if I was doing this in Latin America, I would have compared market values to Latin American values. But here's an example of the discrepancy or the misalignment between values. So Arab worker values: commitment to religions and religious values, devotion to the group, attachment to traditions and history, recognition of hierarchical order, low tolerance for change, and it's a collectivist culture. This is not straight. This is this part of the world. This is how we work. Market values, on the other hand, which is something that is predominant in management education, it speaks to individualism, competitiveness, consumerism, marketization, commodification, persistent change. And there's an element of post-colonial hegemony in the material itself, and whether we like it or not, it's there. So what we're trying to advocate through this research is that action learning is a transition from an advocacy-based learning that we're all used to and we grow up doing in schools to an inquiry-based learning, which we've also heard about a number of times in the past couple of days. The generativity of action learning is about creating knowledge that is relevant to the context in which we are facing an opportunity or a challenge. And it's making sure that everyone in the organization kind of come together around something that is relevant, something that is real. And the benefits of that is it creates reconciliation and harmonization of the work environment. It creates positive learning spirals. And if you're familiar with Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's theory of the broaden and build theory of positive emotions, you would understand why these positive spirals are fundamental to any organization. It obviously suits the context, and it's an experiential process, and that's in relation to the question that was asked yesterday about whether action learning is exactly the same thing as experiential learning. There's certainly common elements between them. So when I speak about reconciliation or harmonization of work environment, well, employees start owning resolution for practical organization challenges. It's results-oriented. It's aligning the stakeholders around results rather than theoretical objectives. It's making sure that everyone in the organization share a common understanding to the organization circumstance. We evaluate the problem and understand the extent of it or the opportunity to the same extent. There is no discrepancy in terms of our evaluation of things. Roles and responsibilities, anyone has faced that where we're confused about who needs to do what? Well, in action learning sets, that's the best place where you can discuss roles and responsibilities, find out who needs to do what when, and who do we report to. And it's not in theory, it is something that is done in practice during action. So action learning really creates a bias and a tilt towards both action and learning, something that is needed in every organization. When I talk about positive learning spirals, and I mentioned Dr. Barbara Fredrickson and the theory of the broaden and build theory of positive emotion. So action learning transforms organization culture, as I said, from this is how things are done to how do we do this better? It's an inquiry, it's a mode of inquiry, wanting to constantly learn how to improve upon the way we do things. And that creates a culture in the organization. It creates an urge to explore, to find out more, and that in itself, exploration and finding out more, creates excitement and positivity in a work group. And those spirals, those positive spirals, are generative. They regenerate and they lift the entire organization upwards. And it creates deeper meaning and stronger connections with what we are doing in the organization. I mean, so much of the challenges that we face is we say one thing and we practice another. Well, action learning kind of brings that together so that we create really stronger connections between stakeholders and between what the organization stands for and its meaning. My friend Alistair talked yesterday about the Heron model I can't believe I forgot this. I spent so much time writing about this. Thank you very much. No, this is not the 4 ways of knowing. This is, yes, it is. It's extended epistemology model of John Heron, and it's based on experiential. The primary source of knowledge that we have as human beings is experience that we go through. And then we express that through presentational forms of writing, talking, speaking, and that becomes a proposition that we believe in, and we build our practice upon that. And experiential learning, and I want to explain that the global aspect of action learning is that it works in two opposite dialectics: grasping knowledge and transforming knowledge. And in any culture, in any background, anybody learns in one of these two ways or in a mix of both of them. So it is a universal. Action learning is universal. It takes care of bias in learning and management knowledge, and it builds strength, diversity, capitalizes on the practice of inquiry, which I think is fundamental. And I end with, we live in the world that our questions create, by David Cooper-Ryder. That is the essence of inquiry. The questions that you ask will determine the answers that you find. Thank you very much for your attention.
Many thanks for Mr. Osama to focus on the crocodile system or crocodile theory, to learn from it. Many thanks once again. And the last paper is Ms. Suha Radwan and Mr. Melhem Muhammad. Please, thank you.
Hello. Hi, my name is Suha Radwan, and I'm coming to present today the paper that me and my colleague have prepared. Well, our paper title is Knowledge Management Towards Connecting Minds. We'll just shed light on the main points due to the time constraint, and then we will be free after the session for any discussion. First of all, the title of the paper, Knowledge Management Towards Connecting Minds, is inspired from the Expo theme, Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, which is Dubai Expo theme. The paper, briefly, it talks about the role of knowledge management towards creating a learning government. And it concludes by proposing a pragmatic concept that could be applied in a public sector in any city. But we have chosen Dubai because of the opportunity of the Expo. First, what is knowledge management briefly? The concept itself. The concept itself has been seen by different authors in a different way, which means that some of the authors, they have seen knowledge management as a very important tool, and it is the basis for innovation and success, while others, the other group, sees it as just a fad, something that will fade away. They do not believe that it is important. And some, actually others, they are warning from moving towards it. Well, why is that? Why do we have two different points of view? Simply, we can say knowledge management in the very simplest form is managing knowledge. So the confusion comes from the perception of the knowledge by each group. Which means that, first, we have the group who are thinking the practitioners. Most of them, they perceive knowledge is classified into two types, explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. Explicit, they refer to the document they have, and implicit, which is the knowledge inside the mind. And they're thinking that in order to manage that, we have to manage both types, the inside the mind and outside the mind. Inside the mind, they are having some knowledge management tools, and outside the mind, they want to manage the documents, to store and organize and do everything like that. And for the implicit knowledge, they're thinking to managing it, the utmost goal is to reach a way to capture it and to transfer it into documented or explicit knowledge to be managed. This is their perception. The other group who perceive that knowledge management is not important, this comes from their concept that knowledge does not exist in documents. Knowledge resides only in mind. And since it is in mind, then it is not easily managed. It cannot be manageable. So they do not think that the concept can work to have something called knowledge management. Those are the two concepts that we have. So, the point is, we have our point of view. We strike a balance between those two opposing point of views. We see that knowledge, yes, resides inside the mind, only inside the mind. And we have a detailed and supporting evidence in our paper, but due to time constraint, we'll not be discussing it now. But we do believe it's inside the mind. Yet, we do not ignore the value of the knowledge management. We do not underestimate the concept. We see that there is something called knowledge management. Yes, inside the mind, but yes, it is manageable. And we'll see how. First, we see that what is the definition of knowledge very, very quickly that we perceive. We perceive that it exists in mind, and it is a mix of very enormous variables inside our mind. They are interacting together, and they are continuously reacting with the received stimulus and things, that information that we read, everything, and thus we are building up our knowledge inside our mind. So the knowledge is constantly increasing, and it is incrementing. It is dynamic and endlessly expanding. And those variables that we have are on both levels, the conscious and the subconscious, inside our minds, and drives our actions. Well, this is the perception of the knowledge which is inside our mind. But this does not mean that it is only one type of knowledge. It is inside our mind, however, we have more than one type of knowledge. We have inside our minds explicit knowledge, which is shown to you. For example, I know about knowledge management, so it appears explicit to you that I know about knowledge management, and explicit to myself. I know there is a knowledge management, so it is explicit to me and to you. The implicit knowledge is the amount of knowledge that I have, but you do not know about it. Maybe I know about advertising, but you do not know that I know about advertising. So, and here is the thing, the play where the organizations can play on the employees to unlock this knowledge and encourage them to share it. And the tacit knowledge that even me, I'm not aware that I have. I'm talking about the subconscious. I'm talking about the inside power inside the mind. I'm talking about the many researchers and things that they are now trying to expand and talk about it to highlight the importance of this part, the tacit knowledge, which is the largest part that we have, but we are not utilizing it. And we have created this model, and we have this model on two dimensions, as you see, the awareness and the articulation level, which will be the highest for the explicit and the least in the tacit knowledge. And the other dimension is the amount of knowledge, which is the most or the greatest amount on the tacit knowledge and the least, which is on the explicit knowledge. And in detail, we have all the supporting evidences in the paper. The point is, why do we have this model? When we see this model, we have knowledge inside our mind. And we have different types of knowledge. So how to manage this knowledge? It is a way to trigger people to think about it. Yes, we say that because it's inside the mind, we will not manage it. No, we can start to think about how to manage this knowledge. We will go and we will resort to the people who are experts in this, in the field of knowledge, or in the field of our minds. We will go to psychologists. We believe that the psychology role in this point is very crucial and inevitable in dealing with the knowledge management. If you want to manage the knowledge, you need someone to help you or to help the employees in the organization to use this amount of knowledge, to trigger the tacit knowledge, to trigger them to get out their implicit knowledge. And definitely we know, all of us as human beings, we're very complicated. We have barriers, we have motives, we have things that are inside. Some things that we are aware of and things we are not aware of. And all of those, they are driving our actions and behavior at the end. And for the organizations, they need to utilize the employees and the most important asset, which is the knowledge. That's why we do believe that knowledge management should take a leap into the psychological dimension. So, yes, we said knowledge can be managed. The first thing is the psychology, as I said. We believe that there are three main perspectives to manage the knowledge management. The second thing is the information management, and it's very interesting to say so because there is a conflict between people working in information management and people working on knowledge management, and they think they are struggling together and they're conflicting. There's a kind of conflict between them. But actually, information management is very important for knowledge management. Why? Because you are providing the documents, the information that you need in order to build on, to help the minds to create new knowledge. So it is something you're feeding the knowledge of the minds on it. So information management is a very integral part in managing knowledge management. Yes, it is not knowledge management, but it is a very important part in managing knowledge management. And last, learning. learning. I will not say a lot because most of my colleagues they have said a lot about learning, but learning at the end will create knowledge. So anything that will manage the knowledge, anything that will affect and influence the knowledge, whether intentionally, whether it is directly or indirectly, will be a part of knowledge management. Based on this concept, we are quickly proposing a concept. The concept could be applied for any city in a public sector, but as I've said, we have chosen Dubai because of the opportunity of the Expo and because of the direction of it towards being in a knowledge-based economy, and because of the importance and the significance of knowledge they are talking about and the power of human beings the leaders are talking about. We believe, and we're suggesting building a knowledge creation and information sharing center. This kind of information center will not be just a research center, or it will be called something of regular center, but we believe that it will work mainly on two different. It will work only on two main axes. It will work on the learning government, and it will work on the other axis, which is providing a unique expo. I'll just leave for Muhammad, my colleague, just 2 minutes to tell about.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muhammad Milhim. I will continue with this proposed concept of knowledge management. Actually, me and Suha worked in knowledge management in the public sector for 10 years in Dubai government. And we proposed this concept because we see that there is a good infrastructure and environment for start managing the knowledge that already created here in UAE, and especially in Dubai, because you know there is hundreds of cultures, hundreds of nationalities come and goes in UAE, and especially in Dubai. A lot of knowledge come from them, a lot of experience. Like this conference, a lot of papers already distributed or presented with a lot of knowledge we can learn from. Why we just listening? Why we not start take a benefit from these papers, from these concepts, from these presentations? So because of that, we proposed this concept that to start build a center for knowledge management in Dubai, especially for Expo, that because a lot of projects will come, a lot of speakers, a lot of events will be created, developed during this Expo. So this center will be run by Cayman expert, people who have an experience in knowledge management. You need them because there is a lot of activities, a lot of tools in knowledge management. You need people, they know the functionality of that. And as Suha mentioned, psychologist is a big part, because if you need to know how to manage what's inside people's mind, you need people special in that field, and not anyone he can know that. And another one, information management, because information management is one of the influencer of managing the knowledge or creating the knowledge. Even it's the big source of knowledge, of the knowledge. And then learning expert. As a learning expert, learning is one of the tool of creating a new knowledge for yourself as individual, for the organization, and even for your country. And this center should be built based on two axes. Learning government and unique expo. Learning government, Suha explained it, and unique expo, as we explained, a lot of people will come and we will go, and we need to capture and we need to share the knowledge come from with them. And we have some suggested ideas. We go through it quickly. We have the first one, idea crystallization. Idea crystallization, we have a lot of people, they have an idea in their mind, but not well refined. We need people to work with them to make it well refined and to make it applicable to be in action. And the next one, knowledge repository, a lot of papers, a lot of research, a lot of knowledge will come. We need to put this in one single access point. Anyone he can access, anyone he can use anytime. And the last one, Expo research, like this conference. We don't need stay or stick with a conference, different conference in different places. We just announce through public sector. We need, during Expo time, all the conferences, all the papers, all the research, it will be under this center, under the expo theme, under this to be managed and to be accessible. If anyone he know any idea, about any papers during any conference or the implement, he just access to that gate and he can find that paper and that knowledge and that information he would like to know more. And thank you. This is a quick, and if you need more information, we have a details paper. We can explain it later if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you for Suha and Muhammad. Once again, many thanks for our distinguished keynote speaker, and it was a great session. And we opened for only 2 questions. Only 2 questions for discussion. Okay, please go ahead.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أولاً بحب أشكر الأخت داليا على البرزنتيشن للريسيرش اللي حضرتك عملتيه. أنا بصراحة بالنسبة لي التوبيك كتير انترستد إنه شو الفرق بين التراديشنال ليرنينج والإي ليرنينج. بس ستيل أنا I'm still looking إنه اليونيفرسيتيز الموجودة هون أو بأي الدول الثانية إنها تركز مش بس على التول how our مثلاً children أو ال students how they are receiving الانفورميشن. أنا بهمني كتير الريزلتس. يعني اوكي ريجاردلس اذا كان تراديشنال او جبنا اي ليرنينج او وديناهم مثلا سايد فيزيتس ريجاردلس التول اللي مستخدمينها بالليرنينج انا بيهمني الريزلتس لانه ات ذا اند احنا عم نبني نيو جنريشن وهذا اي ثينك الفوكس لكل اليونيفرسيتيز instead of graduating students we will keep them for 2 years under training لانه because they are fresh graduates and they are يعني you are treating them as they are coming from different planet okay until they will be with our planet. After training, then I will say, okay, he's not any more new stuff, and now he can join us. For that reason, let us focus in our universities. Let us do more researches. This is my advice, telling how we can enroll our students instead of pushing only information in their heads and let them memorize it. And maybe 50% of the information they are thinking they are not using even in their life, in the work, or in their social life. Let us focus on the practical learning. This is what we have to focus on. And we hope that by next, this one, the cycle for the conference, we can see research in this part. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment, and that's why I didn't stop at the age of, or at the point, or at the phase of just conducted a survey. I followed with analyzing the learning outcomes of the students. Those students, I need to see the output and the extra kind of performance. Have they get extra information by just following the technology and adopting the e-technology in our university? I discovered that e-learning not enough according to the material of the students we are having in our university. That's why we need to integrate. It's like you are tailoring what is most suitable for your students, not just following what is updated all over the world.
I totally agree with you, but my question is, let us focus in our research about the results of the tools we are using in our universities to teach our students. And with my respect, if you use the traditional or the e-learning, let us focus, okay, there is what's that, how much information they got, how they can use this information in their work life.
That's why the conducting the researches is very important. You get out with results and findings, and then you put a reactive kind of plan in order to deal the drawbacks you discovered, right?
Thank you. The last question. Last one, please.
This is a question for Dr. Diver, but linked with what Sudi said. I'm not sure this is a fair question, but I'm really interested, so I'll ask anyway. But in your participatory photographic method, I think you said you had 9 women and 1 man. And I wondered, were the man's photographs noticeably different from the women's?
I have no idea. But
You know, in Lithuania, in schools works only 5 or 7% of men, especially only. In preschools education, there is no men's. In primary schools, you can find in Lithuania 7 of them, not percent. So, have no idea. But maybe men's photographed their colleagues more than women.
Thank you very much, and this is the closing session. والآن بندعو الدكتور علاء جراد، والدكتور علاء جراد هو صاحب فكرة مؤتمر التعلم المؤسسي، وهو المؤسس الأول لهذا المؤتمر. وطبعا دكتور علاء هو كمان الكاتب الكبير في جريدة الإمارات اليوم، وأعتقد أنه الجميع بيقرأ مقالاته، وهي مقالات الحقيقة شيقة جدا في مجال التعلم المؤسسي وغيرها من المجالات الأخرى. يعني الحقيقة احنا بنشكره، هو شخصية رائعة لا تعرف المستحيل، هو شخصية قادرة فعلا على صنع يعني نشاطات متعددة وجمع العديد من العلماء زي ما جمعنا خلال يومين في هذا المؤتمر. يعني احنا الحقيقة بنشكره كل الشكر على كل الجهد اللي بذل في هذا المؤتمر، يعني بلساني ونيابة عن حضراتكم جميعا، فهو يستحق كل الشكر والتقدير لشخصه الكريم ولنشاطه المتميز. فليتفضل.
Thank you everyone, and I really enjoy it, and I feel very strong positive energy all these days, so I don't sleep, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. Actually, before I conclude, I think Dr. Wasim had some intervention before we conclude the conference. تفضل Dr. Wasim.
I would like to ask if acquired knowledge could be propagated from a generation to another generation, because I read about an experiment in Sweden about how they created a conditioned reflex between the red light and painful stimulus to a rat in a cage, and how this rat every time climbs a wooden pillar to avoid this painful stimulus. Hundreds of times, and then afterwards they just enlighten the red light, and immediately the rat climbs the wooden pillar. And the second part of the experiment was having a rat has no idea about this painful stimulus, giving red light but no response at all. And they took the brain of the first rat, and in the form of a suspension, they injected it intraperitoneally inside the abdomen of the second rat. And strangely enough, after 1 month, when they switch on the red light, the second rat climbs the wooden pillar, and this means that this piece of knowledge has been propagated through genes, chromosomes, circulation, whatever it is. And so this means two things. Could acquired knowledge be propagated from parents to offsprings? This is the first one. And the second one is the acquired knowledge along thousands of years back is still in our brains, and this evokes the question, is knowledge comes from inside or we acquire it from outside? So this is my question to the speakers before me.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and I don't want to, though we have been late, but now we are just 5 minutes behind the schedule. We're supposed to finish at 3:30, so we'll finish now, just 5 minutes. I really I don't find enough words to thank you, you brave hearts, because always with the conference, I look in the beginning and then at the end of the conference, I see those really have passion to learning and the survivals. So you are the survivals, and thank you very much for staying with us till the end of the conference. Thanks to the great speakers. This conference couldn't have happened without your contribution. We really appreciate it. We have been enlightened with your talks. We have been enlightened with your thoughts and practices that you shared with us. Thank you to the audience. Again, without you, we couldn't have this conference in place. And thanks for the active questions, contribution from your side. And immediately after the conference, we do our after-action review. And already we have spotted some learning points or learned lessons. So inshallah, next year, we're going to have action learning, not talking about action learning. So we're going to do a real action learning exercise, and we're going to extend the conference for 3 days. We will use other techniques like unconferencing. I don't know if you have heard about unconferencing. You are happy, Alistair? Great. Okay. We'll do unconferencing. We also will use this a technique for audience. So it's not only the speakers who will talk, audience will present. We'll have a technique called speed presentations, where, I don't know if you heard about speed presentations, where we'll give the chance for selected audience to talk on spot for 5 minutes without slides, without PowerPoint, without any other technique. Also, we're going to adopt the TEDx and TED style. This also, unfortunately, TED policy, I wanted to do the conference in cooperation with TED, but they said our policy is not to have the conference on the back or with other conferences. It has to be pure TED or TEDx, because I've established or participated in a TEDx club before. But no one will stop us from using the technique of or doing talks like TEDx or TED. So we're going to use these techniques next year. In addition, we're going to visit 2 organizations, one from the public sector, which really considered as a learning organization, actually 3, one from public sector, private sector, and we bought something in the brochure, third sector, and everybody asked me about third sector, and I realized mainly in the UK we use third sector, it's the NGO or civil community or NGO sector. So we will visit 3 organizations, and we'll invite people from these organizations also to share with us their success stories, and will be fantastic sightseeing. And when you know the place of the conference also, you appreciate this sightseeing. So there will be kind of edutourism. So we'll use edutourism. Before I disclose again the theme for the next year, I would like to again repeat my thanks to you, and I thank all the team and everybody participated in this conference, Emirates Identity Authority, His Highness Sheikh Hazza bin Zayed Al Nahyan for being a patron for our conference, His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak, Dr. Mahathir Muhammad, Mr. Musabbah Abid Al-Mismari from Emirates ID, Dr. Ahmed Al-Jabri, all the team and the board of directors from Emirates ID. I want to thank also my close, dear to my heart team, Jamil, Samir, Abdul Rahim, Diya, Ibrahim, Mahmoud, Carol, everyone. I hope I didn't forget any one of the team. I would like us to thank the Federal National Council team. We really thank you very much for hosting us here. Thanks for the catering companies. Thanks for the cameramen who standing all the time, and everyone from the TV who supported us here in this conference. After I finish now, you can, if you're interested to join us for the mosque, you can go. If you want to leave, it's up to you. It's optional. And now the time for the next year conference. This is it. It will be in Cairo. And it will be for 3 days in partnership with American University in Cairo, Ain Shams University, the first university in history. It was called ON University, the Children Cancer Hospital 57357. And if you ask me why this is the name of the hospital, it is the number of the bank account of the hospital. So they opted to have the bank account number as the name of the hospital to make it easy for donors. And this is the account number in all banks. I don't know how they managed it to force all banks to have the same account number, but it's a success story. And the amazing and very major contribution will be the Arab Organization for Administrative Development will be a key partner in organizing the conference with us. And here I would like to thank Dr. Rifat Al-Faouri for his support. And also Mr. Nawaf Tubayshat, Ms. Taghreed Badaoud, and Dr. Nasser Al-Qahtani, the team from ARADO, Arab Organization for Administrative Development. I would also thank people who came from Saudi Arabia, from Oman, His Excellency Salim Al-Yafi, and my friend Yusri Al-Hamshari, people who drove from Oman and Saudi Arabia to come and attend the conference. And please come here to take a group photo. Thank you very much.